Okay, we're going to make the views for the flange bearing. One of these views includes a section view. And let's go for this. We're going to start with our front view here. And our front view we're actually choosing to be what would appear to be this top view right here. And then when we make the quote unquote top view here, we're going to flip this around and it'll kind of be like you're looking at it upside down from this top view right here. So let's start here. And we only need two views for this part. So because of that, we don't actually need to use the miter box. And because of that, I'm just going to freely draw this view down here on this page somewhere. I'm going to start by locating the center of my three circles. And I see that I've got these two that are 8 across from each other and this one which is right in the middle of those two. So I can actually just start with a line that is 8 inches long. So 8. And while I'm here, let me make sure I'm on the right layer. Going to go to my visible layer. And while I'm talking about the layers, I'm going to backtrack for a second here. I actually want to make sure that I have all the layers that and my dimension styles on this that I want. I should have my layers copied over, but if I don't, what I can do, you got this from your Imperial prototype. I have my tool holder open. I'm going to copy the layers over from my tool holder. So what I'm going to do is go to DC, which is Design Center. DC, enter. That pops up this, and I can go over to my tool holder and look at my layers. And any layers that I'm missing, I can click on and drag and drop into this space right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing with dimension styles. I'm going to make sure that I drag and drop my large and my small r into this part right here. Okay, so continuing with the drawing. Now I can make my circles coming up from this part. So our center circle has a diameter of 4. Going to grab my circle tool and find the midpoint of this line. And I'm going to type in D for diameter, D, enter, and type in 4, 4, enter. A little crowded out, but that's fine. We can move this. I'll actually go ahead and move it right now. Just move it up. When I want to move something up without any connection to anything else, I actually end up clicking off away from the part so I don't get any weird snaps. You see how that makes it a lot easier? So I'm using ortho there. Okay, now these outer circles right here have a radius of 1. So I'm going to do this, and it's already set for radius, so I just type in 1. And I could do the same over there, or I could copy this over. Whoops, I did a move instead of a copy, so let's do a copy now. Here we go. And now I want to be able to connect these with tangency lines. And the way I do this is something kind of special. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my line tool, hit Control and right click, and select tangency, which will be right here. Tangent. You'll see how I get that tangent symbol with the 3 ellipses. That pretty much means that if I click on this circle, I can keep moving my line around and it'll maintain a tangency to that circle no matter what. And now before I click again to get this circle, I'm going to Control right click again and get tangents again. Now you see how I have that tangent symbol with the ellipses again. And that actually means I could even click anywhere along here and it'll automatically correct itself for me. So even if I click right here where it looks like it's obviously not tangent, bam, makes it tangent for me. So I'm going to do that again up here. Now I could do that 4 more times, or I could actually mirror this. So if I was going to mirror this tangency line, I select my object and I create my mirror plane right here. And then I could mirror both of those down. I do not want to erase source objects. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to mirror these across the part. Select those. Do not want to erase source objects. Okay, now I can actually just erase this line right here. Now we've got some counterbore holes right here and a countersink hole in the middle. From our top view, they're going to look the same as each other. So all we really need to do from our top view is catch the 2 diameters for each one and place them on the top view. Let me trim this up really quick. I like to trim as I go. So here I have a diameter of 0.75. I'm going to click on D for diameter, D, enter, 0.75, enter. And I have a diameter of 1 for that outer bore. Type in D for diameter, D, enter, 1, enter. I'm just going to copy these over. Just get my copy tool, select my parts, hit enter, select my base point, drag over until I snap to the centroid of this arc right here. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing by adding my counterbore right here. So I have a diameter of 1.5 that represents this outer edge of this countersink, pardon me, and 2.5, which would be the inner cutout that goes all the way through the part. So let's start with that 1.5. D for diameter, D, enter, 1.5. D for diameter, D, enter, 2.5. And I have my top view done right there. Now I'm going to project up to my view up here, and I'm actually going to turn this into a section view. So I could do 2 things. I could draw it with hidden lines first and then convert it to a section view, or I could just draw it straight to a section view. I think what we're going to do today is we're going to draw it with hidden lines first and then translate it into a section view. That way the step-by-step is very clear. So let's just start by making the visible lines of this part. I'm going to acquire a tracking point right here, bring that up, then take this over, and I'm going to end it right there. If you guys aren't getting that green dotted line, that's from Object Snap Tracking. A really useful thing to mess with. You just hover over certain parts until you see a line that will guide you, and if you stay close enough to it, it'll maintain its place for you. Okay, and then I know that this platform here is 1 tall, so I'm going to use my offset tool. O, enter, 1, enter. And I know that this is 3 tall, so I'm going to use my offset tool again. And I just hit enter to get back into my offset tool. That's something I could do instead of exiting out. And I'm going to type in a new offset, 3, enter. There we go. And now I can actually just acquire some points here to grab that right there. Draw some lines to complete my platform here. And use my trim tool to trim this up. Now I'm not completely done with my visible lines. I would actually need to trim this little section here. I'm not going to trim that, but I'm going to trim the representation of this little surface here, right here, because we aren't going to see a line there. So though we're going to turn this into a section view, this is a good little exercise. That's how you would do that. Okay, now we're going to get our hidden lines. Go to my hidden lines. I'm going to change their color so that they're easier to see while we're going through this. There we go. I'm on my hidden lines layer. And I'm going to get the depth. I'm going to get the main through hole on each of these put in place here. trim. And I'm just going to do these two, and then whatever I do over here, I can mirror over. Let's start over here. Now I have a counterbore here that has, what I need to do is make this counterbore, and I need to give it the correct depth. The depth of this counterbore, we can see, has a depth of 0.125. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to offset this line right here, 0.125, 0.125, enter. So that's O, enter, 0.125, enter, select objects, then drag this way. And I'm going to take this and move it to my hidden lines layer. And then I can project the edges of this down, or rather up. And now we can trim it up. And you will see all of these lines right here. Now I'm going to mirror this across the part. So I'm going to click my mirror tool, select the object that I want to mirror, which is 5 little objects this time. Hit enter, and then select my mirror line, which will be the midpoints of these lines. Click, click, and then no, I do not want to erase the source objects. All right, this last part's kind of tricky. Whenever we have a countersink hole, a standard angle for a countersink hole is 82 degrees. And essentially what that means is your hole is like this in the part. And from here to here is 82 degrees. What that means is that half of this is going to be 41 degrees. Okay? And now we take this right here, and if we draw another line here, we have 41 degrees right here. And then we have another amount right here because we have a total of a 90-degree angle here to here. And this will be 49 degrees, which is 90 minus 41. So because of the way AutoCAD is going to have us draw this line, we're either going to be typing in 41 or 49 degrees depending. Based on the angle that we're approaching this at, this is how we're going to do this. We need to find the edges of where this countersink starts, because remember, we are given this outer edge right there. So we know where that is. We can pick that out on there. And now I'm going to take this line here and use polar coordinates. So I'm going to turn off my ortho. I'm going to just type in something kind of long, like 1.5, and then hit tab. That's how I get into my polar coordinates, which means now I can type in an angle. And I'm going to type in 49. Here we go. And now I can take this and mirror it over. Now I can trim all of this up. So we're going to just delete these lines, trim these. Now there's still the one thing we're missing for hidden line view. We're going to have this line showing right here. There is a line there. See it right here. And you'd still see it through the part if that part was transparent. Lastly, let's add some center marks to our part. We want to extend these center marks out to this outer circle here. So I don't grab the arrow, I actually grab the little handle here and drag this out. Grab that arrow and drag that out. And then I have center lines up here. To stay organized, let me plop these on my center line layer. So the way I do that, the way I move them is I click on them and I go to my center line layer, which is going to be the same color, but it's the principle of it for organization later. I'm going to make center lines here. They're under my annotate tab. The center line, and it's going to go right in between these two lines right there. Center line here. And right here, we're going to have to be careful with this one. I'm going to need to extend it past the edge of this part. So you can see how it only went through here because it only goes according to the two lines that you pick. So I'm going to do the same thing there where I select the handle and I drag it to this outer edge, and then it will automatically have it's extending past the edge of the part right there. All right, so that would be a successful multi-view that shows our hidden lines and our visible lines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top and this top view and transform it into a section view. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my layers, and I'm going to make a layer for my cutting plane. This layer you can copy over from your border layer because that has a 0.6 millimeter line weight. We don't use the border layer. That was an automatic thing in AutoCAD. So if you don't have that, just make a layer that's called cutting plane that is plottable, and you can make it what color you want. I'm going to choose dark blue. The line type is dashed ×2, and the line weight is 0.6 millimeters. Leave that up there for a second. Okay. So now I have a cutting plane layer, and I'm going to grab my line tool and I'm going to make a cutting plane that goes straight through the symmetry parts of this. So it goes across here and down. I'll copy that. Let me change the color of this so we can see it a little better. It's light blue right now. Let's make it green. There we go. Now this cutting plane has very long marks in it. As long as it has breaks, then it's okay. So I'm going to get a spline. But if it wasn't okay, say I didn't get any cuts in this, I would go to my line type scale, which is LTS, and I would type in a smaller number to make this a smaller scale. So I'm going to type in maybe 0.7. I like that better, actually. I'm going to keep that. See how I have more breaks in here? I think that looks better. All right. So to get the arrows on this, the arrows for a spline are twice the size of arrows for dimensions. They're going to be 0.25 long and 0.125 wide. So I'm going to get a polyline, which I can get from up here. I can type in PL, enter. And I'm going to start my polyline on the very end here and then continue down, make it 0.25 long. So it doesn't look like much, but you can see when I highlight, I have a line right here and I have my polyline sitting right at the end here. So I'm going to right click on this and go to properties. And I have in my properties for this polyline, I have a start segment width and an end segment width. I'm going to make the start segment width to be 0.125. and the end segment width to be 1. To be 0. 1 would be a weird trapezoid thing on the end of that. We don't want that. So it's 0.125 start, 0 end. Here we go. Got a nice little green arrow there, and I'm going to copy this green arrow over. So I'm going to get my copy tool, select the base of the arrow as my base point, and drag it over here and just put it on the end right there. Okay. Now, this section view is as though I took this part and I cut it right here and I only kept the part where these arrows are pointing, right? So this right here would be a reflection of that, and we would have hatch marks in the solid parts of the part that are being cut through. That would be the pie that you're cutting through, the pie filling. So what I like to do is I check out my hidden lines and I say which of these hidden lines are going to be turned into visible lines. And it looks like all of these are. You're going to see all of these all of these visible lines on this section view, because this section view goes through all 3 of these holes, these 2 identical ones and the one in the center. So I'm going to just select these here, and I can select them one at a time. I can do something kind of fancy where I lock my center lines. That allows me to select more than a few at a time. And I'm going to change these to my visible. Ah, it did select the center lines for me when I did that. That's fine. That's still the faster way to do that, is to go back and select the center lines and change them back to the center layer. There we go. And now I'm going to use my trim tool, and I don't need these anymore right here because we're cutting through this part. We're no longer looking at the edge of this part. We're looking along this green line right here. Those should have been trimmed for the hidden lines view as well, right there. Okay, now that I have this, I can get my hatch tool. I need to make sure that I have a hatch layer. So I made a hatch layer with a cyan color. It'll be a very simple layer. Just you pick a color that is distinguished from your other ones, a continuous line type, and a line weight of default. Okay, so to make a hatch, I'm going to type in hatch into my menu bar, and I'm going to go up into my hatch creation editor up here and click on ANSI 31, and then I'm going to pick in here where I want my hatch. Now, sometimes you'll open up the hatch creator and you won't get this little pick point. You'll get a little thing that says select objects. If that's the case, before you do this, you can come down here and you'll have select internal points down here instead of select objects, and you'll click on that to change it to get this crosshairs that I'm looking at. Okay, so I have this crosshairs. I'm going to select my areas that are hatched. And there we go.